I hereby call to order the January 25th, 2023 meeting of the City of Prescott General Plan Committee. And now I'm going to do a roll call of board members. When I call your name, say present. Terry Sapio.
Present. Present.
Andre Carmen.
Present.
Mary Frederickson.
Present.
Jim Huffman.
Present.
Rod Moyer.
Present.
Don Michaelman.
Present.
Deborah Thalassides.
Present. Nice, Ted. Good job.
You think with an Italian name I could get it right.
It's Greek.
Yeah. Gary Rorb.
Here.
And James McCarver.
Present.
And Ted Gambogi. So we have 10 present. This is an open public meeting and is being recorded by the city. The proceedings are being televised by representatives of the public media, the public local cable and/or radio stations, and may also be rebroadcast. The number of members present is 10, and it will require 6 votes majority for any voting item. Before I go into this other opening paragraph, I want to make a few comments. I've known Don Michaelman for a number of years, and he's one of the smartest men I know, because working diligently over this past weekend, he identified 2 items from the Planning Commission that were going to be discussed at the City Council meeting yesterday. So naively, I said, okay, I'll go. Well, it wasn't 2, it was 4. But I thought they were relatively easy issues to resolve. And I came to the City Council building, this same building. So why is it I can't find a parking space? So I drove around the building, I drove around the square, I parked, I think in Wickenburg. And I just got here in time, and I walk in the building, I said, is there a sign somewhere that says free beer? It was packed, and it was overflowing yesterday. And I am guessing that's because our friends from Simpo were here. So we heard a lot from the public yesterday at the City Council meeting. We will entertain the public today. But I also noticed yesterday with all the speakers, we had a lot of repeat of the issues. And of course, we always ask that you cover new subjects. So today, we'd entertain 4 speakers, so we'll let you work it out among yourselves which 4 speak, and we'll allow you to speak for 3 minutes. So after Simpo makes their presentation, and after staff gets an opportunity to ask questions and make comments, then we'll open it up for the public. All parties wishing to be heard, including committee members, are required to state your name. We don't have a physical recorder today. We're recording it electronically, so that's even more important today. In order to ensure proper recordation, never heard that word before, members of the public are required to state their name and their address for the record so that we may know who is speaking and be able to contact them at a later date if necessary. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I was at the meeting yesterday, and we heard presentations from Vinnie Gallegos, Lindsay Post, and Bryn Stotler, and I see some familiar faces out there, so you heard the same presentations, and I just wanted to compliment them. I thought that was an excellent presentation. It shared a lot of information with me that I didn't know. I also like to recognize the presence of our Mayor Phil Good and Councilman Eric Moore. So with that, Tammy, we'll open it up for you to take us through the agenda.
Okay. First will be approval of the December 7th, 2022 minutes. Are there any discussion or changes? I don't see any. So does anyone have a motion?
Don Michaelman, I move to approve the minutes.
And who seconded it?
You got to say Rob Moore
Oh, Rod Moyer, second.
Thank you.
and pull the microphone.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, unanimous, okay. So next, we're going to bring up, we had one of the community members asked if SIMPO, they're doing presentations throughout the county to all the cities and towns in the SIMPO boundary, which is the Quad City area. So we asked them to come do a presentation with you about who SIMPO is and what projects they are working on currently. And I will bring up their presentation and hand it over to Vinny. There you are. You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Vincent Gallegos. I go by Vinny. I'm the Executive Director of Central Yavapai Metropolitan Planning Organization, born and raised here in our community. Third generation, glad to be here with you all. Recognize many of you and names, and if I haven't formally met you, hope I have that opportunity. So I'm here to talk about the organization that I'm responsible for. It's the Central Yavapai Metropolitan Planning Organization, or SIMPO for short. So, our vision is to promote and maintain a regional coordinated transportation system for the safe and efficient movement of people, goods, and services. Our mission is to use regional leadership in planning and promoting a comprehensive multimodal transportation system. In these updates, I put in bold some of the key words that I hope is throughout our presentation of our vision and mission. Again, it's regional in our transportation planning, and in our mission, it's to exercise leadership in the planning that we do. So hopefully you'll see that in the topics we're covering today. Just a little bit of trivia if you're not familiar with MPOs, or Metropolitan Planning Organizations. They exist throughout Arizona. They exist throughout the United States. There's about 420 in the United States. There's about 8 in Arizona. An MPO is established when the U.S. Census designates an urbanized area of a population of 50,000 or more. So Prescott and Prescott Valley received that designation in the 2000 census. In 2003, the Arizona governor established SIMPO, so this is our 20th birthday this year. We operate through an intergovernmental agreement. We are a government organization, and we operate in a legal document with the city of Prescott, the town of Prescott Valley, town of Chino Valley, town of Dewey, Humboldt, and Yavapai County. As the executive director, I serve at the pleasure and the direction of my executive board. You acknowledge, Mr. Chair, that Mayor Good is in the room, and he serves on our executive board. He's the secretary treasurer. On my board, I also have Mayor John Hughes. He's the vice chair. Currently, this year, chairman of SIMPO is the Yavapai County Supervisor Craig Brown. We also have Mayor Cal Palguda from the town of Prescott Valley. Councilman Tom Armstrong from the town of Chino Valley, and ADOT has representation also on the board, and Mr. Gary Knight. SIMPO works directly, not only do we serve the elected officials on the board, but we work with their staff members. I won't go through this whole list, but you can see that you're represented from the city of Prescott with the engineer Ian Mattingly, and you can see the other members that work with SIMPO and provide would be similar to like a planning and zoning commission, if you will, that would then make recommendations on to council. This would be similar to us for SIMPO. It would be that advisory group and technical group. I'm going to shift here to what we've been providing an update. I think this is relevant to the work at hand in the general plan. And in a moment, I'm going to invite Bryn Stotler up, who some of you have familiarity with, and we're fortunate to have her as a planner. As a lead into that discussion, though, what we would like to talk about is our regional transportation plan. It's a comprehensive document that we update every 5 years. We work directly with the public. We work directly with the city staff. We work with the elected officials. There throughout this process usually takes us about 12 to 18 months to complete. We usually hire experts, consultants. We have multiple stakeholder meetings, multiple public meetings. The intent of the regional transportation plan, though, is to look at the next 25 years for the city of Prescott, for the Quad City area, for the region. We take in existing data, and we also take in what is projected as future data. So with that in mind, I think on the next slide, I want to acknowledge that the general plans, the last general plan for Prescott, is what we use to help build the regional transportation plan. So what we have is not in contradiction to any of the plans. It's in partnership with the plans. So I've listed the most relevant general plans from the county, Prescott Valley, Chino Valley, and Prescott. There are other transportation plans that we use, but I just wanted to emphasize that today, that we use those general plans to create the regional transportation plan. This is my last slide, and then I'll turn it over to Bryn. Specifically for the city of Prescott, again, taking from the 2015 general plan, I put a dashed line in the middle of the slide because I think what's important is, as you know your role in the city, you're looking at transportation as a whole, whether it's from the more major roads to the local streets. For SIMPO's purposes, we're looking at what we call regionally significant routes. What that means is we're looking at arterials and collectors, and Bryn's going to walk you through that in just a moment. But we get a lot of publicity clearly for work we do with the highway system. But what Bryn's going to show you in a moment is it's more than just the highways. It is significant routes. So we took this from the 2015 City of Prescott General Plan, and Bryn will walk you through, and then Lindsay will come up, and then I'll answer questions for you. So here's Bryn Stotler.
Thank you, Vinny. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. It's great to be here in a uniquely, almost strangely familiar place. Spent some time at this podium over the past 5 years. Oops, get the clicking going here. Vinny referenced the regionally significant routes, and I think it is worth pointing out that of 24 designated regionally significant routes that are identified in the Regional Transportation Plan, 17 of those are found within the Prescott municipal boundary. So while the RTP, the Regional Transportation Plan, is a very broad look at our regional road network system, the regionally significant routes come down to much more finite detail, and a lion's share of those routes reside within the municipal boundary of Prescott. I think you probably recognize a few of those, and they're not all state routes. A big mission, part of the mission of the Regional Transportation Plan, is to inventory existing conditions using common metrics. Those include traffic, which is traffic patterns, origin and destination, and the volume of traffic on our regional roads. Pavement condition is always a consideration and of the utmost concern to our jurisdictions. They really have to look at those conditions in order to keep people driving on the roadways safely. Leads right into safety. We look on a very routine basis at crash data from our region. We work with consultants that specialize in this type of data. They look at crashes, fatalities, and the severity of crashes so that we can really identify and zero in on intersections or areas of transportation volume that may need mitigation. You'll hear this phrasing a lot, multimodal. SIMPO, everything SIMPO does uses a multimodal lens. We're looking at all the ways that people get places, not just in vehicles. You'll hear a little bit more later from my colleague Lindsay about a plan that I'm about to kick off as the project manager that will specifically look more closely at bicycle and pedestrian transportation in our region, and other modes such as equestrian, trailhead access, transit connections, and so forth. So we're always looking at all the ways that people get around. Not everybody is a personal owned vehicle driver. We want to appreciate that and also provide some information for them. And then, of course, in looking at existing conditions, we always look at the socioeconomic factors. We work directly with the planning teams at each of our member agency jurisdictions to identify growth and development patterns, and also to confirm where approvals have been made, where we know that there are a certain number of lots that have been final platted that will move forward. Along with existing conditions, we must look at future needs. That's really the overarching purpose of the Regional Transportation Plan. We want to have that forward look of 25 years to make sure that each of these metrics in the future also is given heavy consideration, and that we place our resources and priorities in the right places. Another feature of High-level transportation plans is investment category. If you've paid any attention to the activities of our Arizona DOT, they use these terms as well, and all high-level transportation plans do. These investment categories include preservation, again, that's preserving what we have already built. Modernization, which is to optimize those facilities. In other words, as new technologies are evolving, we want to make sure that we tap those new technologies, such as signal coordination. And then expansion. This is where everybody's attention usually goes to. How do we get more lane miles? How do we increase capacity of our roadways? Existing roadways are always on our radar. We have to always be optimizing those facilities, but then we also want to look at where other options may reside to alleviate traffic situations. To get into a little bit more detail about modernization and expansion, we'll give you some real-time examples. SIMPO recently undertook a Willow Creek Road adaptive traffic signal study and implementation plan, and SIMPO resources were utilized to support that plan and give the city of Prescott a way forward with the project and increasing the traffic flow on Willow Creek Road. Expansion examples, obviously 69 widening is always on the radar. Sundog Connector is a current project example that would represent new lane miles. And the SR 89 widening, which is another state route highway that we know will require increased capacity over time. The regional transportation plan also goes to the extent of recommending subsequent plans that may be helpful to look at certain either areas or issues in greater detail. Some of the studies that were recommended in the 2045 regional transportation plan are the Downtown Prescott Area Circulation Study. That might be helpful. Who's been downtown on a weekend when there's a huge event in town and is trying to find either parking or just get from one side of the plaza area to another? Can be very challenging, so that might be a helpful study. Active transportation plan, that's a suggested plan from the 2045 RTP. You're going to hear more about that later in our presentation because we are getting ready to launch that study. Regional emergency access routes. SIMPO is in constant contact with our public safety officials so that we can always have the conversation of how are people getting in and out of places and specifically under emergency circumstances. And then wildlife connectivity. SIMPO actually has a committee, an established committee that looks at this issue and other related environmental issues, and so that study is also something that is a potential for the future. Another study that we actually update on a routine interval is a regional safety plan. We're in the process of updating that study right now. The study does only encompass the SIMPO planning boundary, which is about 400 square miles. And that's about 5% of our county. The planning boundary is unique to our urbanized area. The regional safety plan, as you can see, looks at broad brush metrics like no injury accidents, possible injury, suspected, serious injury, and of course fatalities. The Arizona Department of Transportation has a statewide goal of 0 fatalities. By extension, SIMPO adopts that goal as part of our programming. So this kind of shows you where the breakout of crashes might lie. And of course, Prescott being a population center here in the region does have some significant numbers there. The data that supports this plan is provided to each jurisdiction so that they can funnel it into their very specific traffic and roadway planning exercises. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Lindsay Post, who will talk more about projects.
Thanks, Bryn. I'm Lindsay Post, Transportation Planner at SIMPO. I'm probably a new face to everybody in this committee. I'm usually the one who's always in a mask, so that should be easy to recognize me. I'm not from Prescott. I'm from a teeny tiny town of 2,000 people on the eastern plains of Colorado. I'm a second-generation American, so I cannot make the claims of being a third-generation Prescottonian like my boss. But I do care nonetheless, and so that's why I'm here today. You've just heard an overview of our work as well as the RTP and how that's developed. I'd like to talk a little bit about some specific projects that come about as a result of our planning efforts. One of those being the State Route 69 Urbanized Master Corridor Plan. We typically call it the 69 Master Plan in our office, make it a little bit easier. As we all know, this is a 15-mile corridor from Prescott to Dewey Humboldt. About 6.2 miles of that is within the city of Prescott. This is our most visible highway, 45,000 vehicles a day, and that was from 2021's data, so that could have increased in the year and a half since. The purpose of this plan is to provide an implementable, deliverable list of prioritized segments of SR 69 that what we assume should be widened. Of course, we all know that the solution is widening, though the fourth bullet point there is to give you a perspective of the reality we're dealing with. The widening that's taken place in front of Frontier Village, in front of Lowe's, that's taken us 10 years and $13 million just to get that 1 mile done. So the purpose of this slide is to show that SR 69 has always been a focus of SIMPO, of the region, is now and will always be because of its importance. But we know, based on that fourth bullet point, that the reality tells us that we likely won't be able to do all 15 miles of widening. So that's why the plan will give us prioritized segmented list that we can start implementing right away. The Sundog Connector Design Concept Report and Environmental Overview. The purpose of this slide is really just to give you an idea of what the city of Prescott has done over the years and what's led SIMPO to where we are today, which is this DCR and environmental overview project. As you can see here, in 1998, the Prescott General Plan update included a reference to the Sundog Connector as a solution to the transportation network issues. It was referenced in the 1998 East Area Plan. And then in that same year, that's when Yavapai Hills Unit 9's Unit 9 preliminary plat was approved and the development agreement with the city of Prescott was enacted. In the year 2000, Prescott Valley built that terminus point that we all drive by and wonder where it's going to. And then in 2007, Storm Ranch had a preliminary plat approved and the development agreement with the city of Prescott enacted. In 2010, the city of Prescott made an initiative to build that terminus point at Prescott Lakes Parkway. And then in 2013, the city of Prescott undertook the Sundog Connector Corridor Study. In 2015, the Sundog Connector was referenced once again in the Prescott General Plan. On this next page, I'd like to show you a map. Now, this is for planning purposes only. This is just to demonstrate what we're talking about. So you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, that's Prescott Lakes Parkway at that terminus point that I just discussed, built in 2010.
Excuse me, Lindsay, could you point to that?
I think I can. Let me, will it let me?
Move mouse up there.
Oh, so fancy. So this is that terminus point at Prescott Lakes Parkway. The road that you see here is to show the responsibility of the Sundog Connector that SIMPO has. So this is going through Storm Ranch. This is some of their final and preliminary plats. And then as we go through, this is the area between Storm Ranch and Yavapai Hills. The white is preliminary plat approved by the city of Prescott. Green is their final plat. And then at the very end, this is basically where SIMPO's responsibility purview ends. From here on, the no-build option that would come from the Sundog Connector DCR, and I'll back up just to explain that a little bit. The end will result in 2 build alternatives for the public and for town councils to consider. And the third option is a no-build option, where SIMPO's responsibility is to explain what happens to the transportation network if this road is not built all the way through. And so what we'll do, the no-build option will evaluate what happens to the network if it stops here and doesn't go all the way through. So that's just a way to demonstrate that we can only plan up till here. The rest is up to the city of Prescott. Where is that? That's at the very end of Unit 9, Yavapai Hills. This is a preliminary plat. And as my colleagues just alluded to, SIMPO is a holistic planning organization. We do not exist only on the highways. And so to that end, we also have a responsibility of mobility management in the region, and that's a contract that we have through ADOT. We receive funding to provide this service. And we provide technical expertise and an overview for the network and promote its growth. YRT, Yavapai Regional Transit out of Chino, is a highly visible one, very highly utilized, and even more so after the pandemic. The Yava line is a new system. It is demand response only, so you call or you use an app and they come and get you and take you right to where you need to be. So it's not yet fixed route, and that's only in the city of Prescott. It's a phased implementation, so year 2 is actually when city of Prescott would start being involved in putting skin in the game and having the expansion come into Prescott. 30% of the rides so far on the YAV have been to and from places of employment, so very well used and for really great purposes. We also have client-based services in our area, like New Horizons Disability Empowerment Center. They provide some human services transportation, like a lot of other client-based services. For example, People Who Care is a volunteer neighbor-to-neighbor service that you might be familiar with. And then Bren alluded to this. She is the project manager of the ACT UP. This is called the Active Community Transportation Unified Plan. We have not had one yet in our area, so Bren is part of the PB TAC, bicycle pedestrian TAC, that you have here at the city of Prescott. And this plan will evaluate alternative modes of transportation and the facilities that support them. So facilities would simply be crosswalks, truncated sidewalks, and facilities that connect trail systems. So as we know, we've got a lot of bikers, walkers, and even mounted horseback riding people who use that mode to get to and from where they need to be. So this is going to be a look of how we can be more holistic in the region and support all modes of transportation. And with that, we'll turn it over to questions. But I did want to point out we put up at the podium and with you all our new quarterly newsletter. We're very proud of it. We'll put this out every quarter and talk about the good that SIMPO is doing. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Gallegos for questions.
Vinny, 1 second. George, do we have resident input cards on the table there?
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions.
And Mr. Chairman, just if I could, and be happy to take questions and comment, just to go back to the slide for just a minute. So again, this is a planning map, just it's in our work of our 18-month study. I just want to be clear for today's purposes that SIMPO's view in the planning effort is we acknowledge the plats that have been approved for Sundog Connector in Yavapai Hills Unit 9, that's part of that development agreement. It's part of the development plan. We also recognize that the gap in between Storm Ranch and Yavapai Hills is also spoken for in the development agreement. And then again, finally, just to repeat what Lindsay said, that Storm Ranch also has responsibility to develop Sundog Connector. As I understand it, there's 227 lots in Storm Ranch, and approval for Yavapai Hills Unit 9 is 1,814. So SIMPO recognizes what the city of Prescott has approved previously, and again, our efforts are to attempt to plan this corridor in response to what has been approved. So I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to take questions and comments.
Okay, we'll take comments or questions from staff. And Gary, I'll let you go first.
Okay, I have 2 points I'd like to address. I was on the last general plan, chaired the Open Space Trails Committee, and as part, I was intrigued and baffled when I found statistics that Prescott at that time, I don't know if it still is, was the 3rd highest deer kill zone on Route 69 by Lowe's. So I had ADOT put a camera where the tunnel is, part of the Circle Trail, and 300 photos, not one deer would even think about going through there. I approached Congressman Gosar's office and said, "Do you have MAP 21 funding? Can we address this?" And his response was he was too busy. So that still is a huge concern of mine. I would like it addressed as part of transportation and part of the general plan. And the second point I'd like to bring up is I hope to have a separate committee or subcommittee, as it will be for trails, being separate from open space this time, because we're facing the retirement of Joe Baines. We're facing the retirement of Chris Hosking. Chris would like to stay afterwards. If we do not have a regional park, I don't think we're going to have an Overhill game, which I've been part of for over a dozen years. And we'll lose tremendous revenues. So those need to be addressed. But a big issue for me, and I know, Bryn, you're part of that, I did a recent research of what communities in the United States are bike-friendly, and the top 12 pages, full pages listing communities, Prescott was not listed in one. We are not a bike-friendly community. Most communities that addressing that realize the need for moving forwards as a viable means of transportation, especially those of us who are younger than 80 and getting close to that, not wanting to drive so much and feel like we moved here to be part of the outdoors, which is extremely important for the aging, for health-wise. All my research says, get us outdoors, make us healthier. The latest Harvard study, medical study, is if you do not get seniors outdoors, they have a greater chance of dementia and Alzheimer's. So I think those are really important. I'd like to join in or have you join in on a subcommittee for addressing those issues. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make one quick comment with response to the wildlife. SIMPO created a subcommittee of our organization, which I didn't highlight today. It's called EMAC for short, but it focuses on the environment. It focuses on wildlife. If you were here yesterday, you heard a speaker by the name of J.D. Greenberg. She serves on that. Tammy DeWitt from the city of Prescott's the current chair. They've existed for about 5 years to provide us with counsel direction as to what can we do better from a transportation planning standpoint as it relates to wildlife, and most especially with what Bryn hit on earlier of expansion and modernization of roadways. Are there any things that can be done with our existing infrastructure and moving forward? What are some possibilities to help with that? We know that there's cost associated with it, so we try and offer our decision makers the low-hanging fruit and also what are some things to strive for.
The national average for wildlife occurred accidents is $8.3 billion. At that time when I was researching it and had ADOT involved, I went to several insurance companies here in Prescott and said, what is the aftermath of that? And they said, look at your insurance bill. Everyone in Prescott is paying for that.
Mr. Gary, what was this figure and how's it defined? $8 billion?
The national cost for wildlife corridor accidents,
Total U.S.
total $8.3 billion.
Deborah, I'm going to call on you, but since Gary was on the subject of wildlife, when the COVID hit and the YMCA shut down, I said, I'm going to do the Prescott Circle Trail. So I remember one day leaving York Chrysler and going down under that trail.
Yeah.
I didn't see any wildlife. As a matter of fact, I didn't see any wildlife in the 56 miles in that whole trail. Vice Chair Terry had some comments about wildlife and roads.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Terry Sapio, the wildlife collisions, like you mentioned, are a real problem nationwide. And in Colorado, Highway 160 between Durango and Pagosa Springs is notorious for wildlife collisions. And last July 22, they completed a wildlife overpass instead of an underpass, and because their studies and research indicated that the wildlife do not use underpasses, but they will use an overpass. They completed it in July of 2022 and opened it up to the wildlife, and right now their estimates are that it is reducing the number of vehicle-wildlife collisions by an astounding 85%. So, as one of the things I would like to see with SIMPO in their planning is to assess the possibility of wildlife overpasses and assess the cost of that. The one that they built on Highway 160, it cost $12 million, which is a lot of money. However, it was over an existing roadway with lots of traffic, so they had to deal with existing traffic conditions, and that drives up the cost considerably. But if you are building a new road, such as the Sundog Connector, during the construction phase, if you can also do the wildlife overpass at the same time, that should hopefully reduce the cost of the wildlife overpass.
And Mr. Chairman and Member Sapio, thank you very much for your comment. I would just provide one example. I'm on full board with you in our planning that needs to be a part of the process. Lindsay mentioned earlier, see if I can get back to the slide, on the State Route 69 project, this one. I don't have the numbers offhand. I had them 5 years ago. I could repeat them very easily. But we did use the wildlife crashes with vehicles in this section of State Route 69. That was a very key selling point to this $13 million project. The City of Prescott, Yavapai County, and SIMPO put in $2 million towards this project. The balance is on ADOT. But one of our selling points to ADOT was, and don't quote me in this room, I know people are listening, but I want to say in Arizona, this was ranked, this might be in the top 20 list of wildlife vehicle crashes. Yep. So with all that said, to get this project done, now one of the mitigations we looked at was exactly what you're looking at. I thought it was around 10 million or so. So again, all the stakeholders involved in the conversation, long story short, the best we were able to do is to do some improvements under the road, which has been spoken about today. Those aren't the ultimate solutions, and I see a lot of head nods that are in agreement with that. For me as a staff role, you do with what you can with the resources and the decision makers, but in our planning process, we did look at some greater solutions to it. All that to say that we are happy to always consider what we have with our limited resources and what we could do, what's the next step above that. So thank you.
And I'd also mention to the public and to the committee, if you take a drive from Kingman up to Las Vegas on 93, I've been a volunteer for Arizona Game and Fish Department. They've put those overpasses on, and they work really well.
93%. Yep. The two that I know of are one you're mentioning. The other one that Chuck Budinger was involved in was the Route 260 corridor from Payson, and I believe that's a 90-some-odd% success rate for that. So.
Okay, Deborah, I've been promising you that you could speak, and we got detoured.
No, good discussion. There's also a wildlife overpass on I-90 in the Seattle area going over Mercer Island. So they are around in a lot of different states. Just have two questions. Vinny, I think this first one is for you. The 2013 Sundog Corridor Study called for a DCR, I'm sure you're aware of, and it had several things that it said should be covered, and I want to see if that's being covered this time. One of them was confirmation of purpose and need, topographic survey, geotechnical investigations, which would include soil testings on that nice little volcano hill, environmental investigations, which includes cultural, biological, hazardous, noise, and air quality. So are these being looked at in the current DCR, and could you guys post the RFP or the RFQ that was used to hire the current consultant on your website?
Yes, we could. So to back up, Mr. Chair, and yes, absolutely, we can post that on our website. We did post it when we went out for advertisement. And then to work backwards to your comment, those will be included. The purpose of our planning process is to provide the decision makers that are around this dais, our council, mayor, to have, excuse me, answers to all these questions. Ultimately, I know everyone keeps asking, is it truly necessary about the cost? What does it look like? How many lanes? But then you got into some very specific things. A key part of the design concept report, another major element to it is the environmental overview. Lindsay didn't hit on that too much, but that is a technical aspect, and it gets into addressing all those specific things so that everyone that's involved in the decision making in this process knows what you're getting yourself into, what we're getting ourselves into as it relates to this area. So I hope that addresses your comments and question.
Yeah, so, and I appreciate you putting that on the website. I think that'll help. My second question is around the development agreements. Your slide, and I think it was before the map, referenced a 2007 Storm Ranch DA. You guys are aware that that DA is no longer valid, correct?
That's the last information that we have.
Okay, there was a DA in 2019 that superseded all prior DAs for Storm Ranch. So my question, and this may be for George Worley, is if we could know what the specific language is in both the 1998 Yavapai Hills DA and the 2019 Storm Ranch DA that requires this road, particularly the part of it that's going to go through what is now state land between Storm Ranch and Yavapai Hills.
That's an interesting question. Yes, we can get the DA language. I think what's important, though, is in the scope of what this committee is supposed to be doing, details like that are probably beyond your scope. Your 10,000-foot picture look at the whole city and all various aspects of the city. The individual roadways, design criteria studies like that are typically handled through other organizations or through other parts of the city department. The city of Prescott has a traffic engineer who does studies. We rely on SIMPO to do studies. We can certainly get you the information, but I doubt it will ever be part of your discussion for the general plan. It's just not, you're not at that low level of granularity. It's the popular term today.
I guess I would disagree with that, since it appears to be a major component of the policy decision that's being discussed, that these are required by a DA, and just like to see the language. I know we certainly can't influence the language, but it would be nice to be able to see that.
Absolutely can get you the DAs.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question along the same lines. On the development agreements, whether the Storm Ranch one has changed or not,
We also want to keep on track that we aren't discussing the Sundog corridor
Yes,
or any of this. It's not
Sundog.
agendized.
Right.
We were just discussing their
My question
projects.
addresses the Sundog corridor. That the Sundog corridor is committed at least to the eastern edge of Unit 9 for Yavapai Hills, is that correct?
That's part of the study going on of the right corridor, but that is an area that's already committed.
Okay, so it has to go at least from Prescott Lakes Parkway to the eastern edge of
The west-
Yavapai Hills,
The western
Unit
side
9.
of western side, yes.
You mean the eastern side of?
Just for a little clarification, if you can call what I'm about to say clarification, yes and no. There are development agreements that require portions of roadway to be constructed by various parties. Development agreements are a contract. Contracts can be negotiated and renegotiated.
Okay.
Rob?
Yeah, along the same lines, the Sundog connector, if it went all the way to Prescott Valley, would likely be a 4 or 5 lane road, I think. The commitment for a road that would only go to the east side of that Unit 9 would not necessarily be a 4 lane road. Correct?
That's something that will come out of the study.
It would only serve those two communities and not traffic between Prescott and Prescott Valley, so I think that's a different animal.
Mr. Chair, and also Member Moyer. That's all part of the planning process in the sense that we're looking at what if this gets built, what if that doesn't get built, what if it's 2 lanes, what if it's 4 lanes. The 2013 study does talk about that. I think there were comments provided by the public yesterday that referenced that. I think it was Councilmember Rusing had asked me that question, and I didn't commit to it. The 2013 study references it, but our planning process of planners throw a lot on the board and see what sticks, and that's what we're doing. So we are looking at exactly what you said, Member Moyer. What if it's 2 lanes? What does that look like? What if it's 4 lanes? What does that look like? It's part of the planning process.
Thank you, Vinny.
You're welcome.
Vinny, could you pull that microphone closer to you? I don't know if it's working.
It was a little bit quiet when George was talking, but I'll raise my voice a little at you.
Thank you.
It's just not, it's not being honorary. I'm just raising my voice.
Okay. Any other questions from,
Yeah, one more.
all right?
The 2013 study indicated that this project should not be studied again until a area population of, I don't remember the exact number, it was well over 200,000 be reached, and 69 was widened. And I don't think they meant just the mile of 69 that we were talking about a little while ago. Sounds to me like they were referring to the entire highway. I think the public deserves an explanation of why this thing was reawakened before those things were met.
So my response to that, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, would be the regional transportation plan. It is a continuous work in progress that I get the focus of the 2013. I've heard that comment before several times. I heard it last night and I hear it today. What I would respond to it is it's not only about that metric. For us in our regional transportation plan, we plug everything in there. What happens on Willow Creek Road? What happens on Glassford? What happens on 69, 89, 89A? What happens when these roads either remain as they are improved or not improved? So I do know that 2013 study, I know the reference that you're making. What I would say is our regional transportation plan still puts it within a priority list of projects for consideration as you look at the whole network. And I think that's why bringing the regional transportation plan to this general plan committee was an important discussion. You know, we hesitated getting into some of these specific projects, but we know there's a lot of interest about it. But the key part is in the regional transportation network, we're looking at the region as a whole. It's 400 square miles. For us, it's not just Prescott. We look at the traffic of primarily everyone coming here, mostly everyone coming here to work and for a number of things, if you will, at times from Prescott Valley, Chino Valley. So again, we're looking at all of the improvements. So I would just say we continue to vet that project through our regional transportation plan progress, our process. So that's how the project remains a priority for the region. Again, my executive board's more than welcome to override my recommendation. Staff is more than welcome to contribute their points as we move forward.
Thank you, Vinny. Any other questions from the committee? I have some questions, but unrelated to the connector. Is there any explanation, Brenda, I think this may be yours, because it was one of your slides. I noticed that Prescott had more traffic accidents than everyone else. And I'm not the guilty one, so neither is Mayor Phil Good. Any idea why that is?
I would have to attribute that number to the volume of traffic that comes in and out of Prescott on a daily basis. I mean, more volume of traffic, more crash incidents. I don't have the safety plan with me right now and can't speak specifically to that number, but you're right, the lion's share of the grand total within the SIMPO planning boundary does belong to the city of Prescott.
But the fatalities are less.
Fatalities are in the entire SIMPO boundary are only 56 incidents or crashes out of the total of 8,256. Prescott's share of that 56 is 19. And yesterday, I did break those down into percentages for the benefit of the council and the public in the room. We didn't go to that level today, but I can send you that information, Ted. And the safety plan itself is on our website, simpo.org, so you are welcome to go and look at that. The exciting thing about the safety plan is that as we develop the latest iteration of the safety plan, the technology just gets better and better. We're provided with mapping that's interactive and that you're able to zoom in and zoom out and see intersections and crash incidences and make the connections to how to develop mitigation for those areas.
And if I can, Mr. Chair and Bryn, real quick, the intent of this slide was to whet your appetite, which clearly it did. We wanted to catch your attention. To Bryn's point, we are going to have a comprehensive safety plan. We're going to drill down on everything you see there and more. We're going to look at all 3,456 related incidents in the city of Prescott. We'll be able to tell you about those 19 fatalities. What SIMPO will do for the city of Prescott as our partnership, we will provide you on what are the issues, but let's take it a step further. What are the solutions? You know, is it wildlife? Is that the issue? Is it bicycle pedestrian? We're going to provide the solutions. Then we're going to take it one step further. How do we achieve those solutions? How do we put it in a priority? Where's the greatest need? Where's the funding for it? Where's the support for it? And we're going to, again, prioritize it in a very comprehensive document for everything you see on there. So this page is going to turn into about 250 pages in the next year. And then you, as the city of Prescott, are more than welcome to continue to work with SIMPO on it, take it with your staff, but focus on those mitigations and those issues. So I'm glad this caught your attention, but just know that there's a lot more information coming for you and staff.
Vinny, I've got one more question on the same topic. Terry Sapio, of the 3,456 crashes that we have in the city of Prescott, do you have any idea how many of those happen in the Highway 69 corridor?
Yes, I have information. We have data on all 8,256 incidents for the whole SIMPO region. Each of those incidents, we have, as Bryn mentioned, we have the technology, which we'll be putting on our website very soon, where you'll be able to click on all the different areas. For our purposes, because we're regional, let's use fatalities as an example. There's 19 fatalities in the last 5 years. None of us want to see one fatality. What's going to happen, though, for SIMPO's purposes is we're going to say there's 19, but is there a particular area, possibly like 69, where from a regional standpoint, we can focus in on and we can provide solutions. And then we look to the city of Prescott to address some more of those local ones. But we will have all the data for State Route 69.
Thanks.
There were 430.
430, okay. All right.
I would just simply close out by pointing out that the no injury column is significant. That is sort of the good news embedded into this broad brush table, which is that over 70% of the accidents that are reported within the municipal boundary of Prescott had no injury at all. We hope to increase that.
I have a question about, you talked about multimodal. A bicycle century is 100 miles, and I've done approximately 6 of them, plus an Ironman, which is 112 miles if you're not swimming and running. So I know a little bit about cycling. Now, I'm a little older now, but is cycling a possibility in Prescott?
You mean for standard transportation?
Yeah.
Absolutely. There are already folks that take their lives into their hands every day to do that. And with the advent of our newest technology, e-bikes, e-scooters, and all manner of e-modes of transportation, I happen to be a new owner of an e-bike, and I live about 3 blocks south of the plaza, and I realized right away that the city of Prescott is not a great environment to ride a bike in. So to your point, Ted, the whole purpose of that plan is to inventory the existing facilities. If you talk to Ian Mattingly, he can tell you exactly how many lane miles in the city of Prescott have bike lanes. We'll be inventorying those facilities. In the pedestrian environment, we'll be inventorying crosswalks, mid-block crossings, such as the one on Whiskey Row. Think about how different this can be from jurisdiction to jurisdiction within our region. Prescott Valley was built without sidewalks and primarily without crosswalks. They're in a big push now to retrofit their bar ditch system and driveways with full sidewalks and pedestrian safety facilities such as mid-block crossings and crosswalks.
I appreciate you allowing us to get into the weeds a little bit today. One last question. I think I heard you say that 69 will be done in stages, or maybe Lindsay said that.
Yeah. The corridor plan will segment out the 15 miles of corridor being examined, and it will look for the most implementable opportunities to improve safety on the corridor.
The question I have with that is, aren't most of our accidents occur when we go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes?
Not my area of
Here comes
expertise.
Vinny.
Sorry.
Here comes Vinny again. The answer would be yes. I mean, that's the answer. And that's, again, one of the major selling points for that bottleneck area that's in front of Lowe's. Again, that 1 mile widening from Prescott Lakes Parkway to Yavapai Road. You go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes back to 3 lanes. So when we look at the crashes in that area, wildlife was very high on the list for that area. But what was the other thing? It was as people are rushing to get in the bottleneck area.
Yeah.
So again, I don't have those stats handy, but to Lindsay's point, Chairman, what I would say is SIMPO, the priority for State Route 69 has been a priority, is a priority, will continue to be a priority. What I hope as a planning organization is we can chew gum and walk at the same time. We can do an active transportation plan and a 69 plan and a Sundog plan and a Highway 89A plan. So all that to say is what we want to do is get a priority. Where can we focus on first? The decision makers before us, well, it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of we are focused on 69. So we focused on the segment from Prescott Lakes Parkway to Yavapai Road based on a whole list of factors. Where's the traffic? Where's the incidents? Well, where's segment number 2? Where's segment number 3? And then here's the ultimate question. Where does the money come from? We passed the hat around 8 years ago, and we were able to come up with $2 million to approach ADOT with. Here's my closing message, and the reason we put this on here. This is one of the last projects in the state of Arizona, outside Phoenix and Tucson, that ADOT has funded for expansion. So in the future, when we go to them, they're going to shrug their shoulders at us and say, we don't have money. All of our focus is on preserving what we have. 5 years ago, they changed their budget practice to only preservation. They highlight this project in all of Arizona, outside Phoenix and Tucson, as one of the very last expansion projects. And I don't say that to be the big wet blanket in the room. That's the reality. So I'm fine with us talking about State Route 69. Let's find out how we do it. It's just that the funding's not there, but we'll keep working at it is, I guess, my bottom line point.
Thank you, Vinny.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have a question, I think very germane to transportation, and either you or George maybe have the answer. The last general plan, I think the statistics for retirees in Prescott was 52%. Do you have any concept of how much that's increased? I don't think it's decreased.
It has definitely gone up.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to talk about who is the population here we're serving and what are the greatest needs. And if we're talking transportation, we need to know what percentage would be amenable to bigger transportation without them having to drive a vehicle. Or like Bryn, my research showed that huge increase of people not driving because of e-bikes all over the country except Prescott. So.
And Mr. Chair, if I can also, to the member's point, another factor of our regional transportation plan is we take into account the demographics.
Yeah.
And for everything that SIMPO does, we understand the wish list is long, but we put it in priority order. So to your point, we look at, again, where is the community? Where are they starting to? Where are they going? What's income level? What's their ability to travel? Are they using vehicles? Are they using bicycle, pedestrian? So again, we have that. That's part of our regional transportation plan. If you open it up, there's multiple maps in there that give the breakdown of age and ability and disability, if you will.
Well, the general plan is a projection for the next 10 years. If we're increasing at so much rate for retirees, it really, really is important to talk about how do we get around and what modalities will be available. I think, and even things like medical. I've been independently surveying doctors and medical people here, and they're horrified that's on a national basis, too. You can't keep people here, can't get good medical. These things need to be addressed, and definitely transportation needs to be a highlight in the general plan.
Our regional transportation plan, just a quick reminder, is again 25 years out. We do it in a 15-year, and then we go 10 years beyond that is 25. A reminder for the committee, we update it every 5 years. We know a lot changes in a short amount of time. We even did a 2.5-year update when the economy several years ago was doing some pretty wild things. So we try and stay on top of it as best we can, but that is another resource for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you,
Chair.
Vinny. As we, Don?
Vinny, Don Michaelman. If we want to receive the quarterly newsletter, do we just go on the website and there's a sign-up place there for it?
Yes, sir. There should be, I think on the last page, if you want to sign up, you just go to the link or the website. And yes, we'll put you on there and we'll send out the quarterly newsletter. And please contact me, phone, or stop by the office, or email or text, but happy to visit with you, and you can sign up for the newsletter.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If there's no other comment, we have public comment later on the agenda, but as we promised today, since this topic is of importance, if anyone wants to comment, remember we said we take 4, and you got about 3 minutes to talk, and you can decide among yourselves who comes up first. And when you do, since we don't have someone to record, please state your name and address.
I suggest there are several groups here. I think it's fair that Yavapai Hills gets one speaker, Sundorf Disconnect gets a speaker, and Save the Dells gets a speaker.
You can work that out among yourselves.
The Yavapai Hills.
So if you make it to the lectern without getting tripped, you can speak. All right, you can go second.
Hi, I'm Ann Friday, a resident of Prescott, 3398 Bar Circle A Road. And please don't publish that. I want to express my appreciation to Mayor Good for yesterday at the council meeting allowing generous public comment, a little more so than you, Mr. McKimboji.
He's a nicer guy.
No comment. And I want to tell you, I have undying affection for Vinny Gallegos, but Vinny and I don't agree on a lot. And today I heard Vinny say something brand new to me. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but Vinny said Simpo is responsible for the western half of the road. And he said 2 development agreements require it be built. But those 2 development agreements are not on the Simpo history slide. They're not mentioned at all. And so I don't know how that change occurred, because the no-build option until this meeting, which is news to me, was for the entire road, not just the eastern half. So I don't know how that change occurred, but we're very opposed to putting that freeway through the corridor, which is Prescott's crown jewel. And I want to make sure everyone sees the front page of the Courier, in case you missed it. It talks about the overwhelming opposition at the council meeting yesterday. So thank you.
Thank you. Hold on for a second. Vinny, would you address a concern that was just mentioned?
Absolutely, and thank you. And I have undying affection for Ann too. She loves to write me all the time, and I just don't find the time. I'm not a good handwriter, so I'm more of a texter. Either way, all aside the point. To her point, just for clarification, it was Lindsay that spoke on that matter, and it was, if you go back to the slide, it was an error. So I'm glad Ann is on top of us better than I probably was. I should have corrected that. So to be clear. And go back to the map part for me, please. Again, Simpo is responsible for the planning. That's the planning process. The point of when I came back up was to offer clarification. It's SIMPO's understanding that, again, plats, whether preliminary or final, and development agreements account for that western half. When we talk about a no-build option, SIMPO has no authority to tell Prescott what to do in their development agreement, so we honor and respect what's in place today. When we talk about a no-build option, everything we do has a no-build component to it. Our regional transportation plan is filled with that. What if Williamson Valley stays as it is today, road? What if Willow Creek Road stays as it is today? What if Glassford Hill stays as it is today? That's the no-build option. This one, again, is unique. There's nothing there. But the no-build option is, what if the connection from Prescott Valley to Yavapai Hills is not made? That's the extent of our ability. Our hope as a planning organization is that we can comprehensively plan this corridor. We want to be able to provide all the input that's behind me and more into the input. Does the public, clearly there's people that don't want it, I get that. But if it's going to happen, can SIMPO provide decision makers like you, like mayor, like council, and say, look, this isn't perfect, but we're going to recommend 2 lanes. We're going to recommend 4 lanes. We're going to recommend no lighting. We're going to recommend environmental mitigations. So the no-build option, to be very clear, it was specific today, is from, again, that eastern boundary of Yavapai Hills Unit 9 to Prescott Valley. I can't speak for the agreements, if you will, of what happens, what doesn't happen, and those type of things that George mentioned earlier. So just want to be clear. I hope that helps, Mr. Chair, and I hope it helps with Ann's comment.
Thank you very much, Vinny. Now, Yavapai Hills.
Thank you very much. Just trying to be polite. My name is Rich Kaplan. I'm here on behalf of the Yavapai Hills Sundog Committee, which the Board of Directors for Yavapai Hills is authorized to oppose. Sundog, I live at 840 Flying U Court, which is in Yavapai Hills. But I will say that I don't live right on the precipice of where Sundog is supposed to be. I'm a little further away. I'm going to try and be responsive to the conversation this morning as opposed to what happened yesterday. I think the development agreements are actually very important, and maybe it's getting into the weeds, but these are weeds that need to be looked at. I tried to make the point in front of City Council yesterday that the Storm Ranch Development Agreement, which has gone through a series of iterations, does say that the developer is responsible for 2 lanes of the road within Storm Ranch, but anything after that, so any expansion to a 4 or 5 lane highway or anything in the other boundaries is at the sole expense of the city. So this notion that this is a freebie for the city is just not there. The Yavapai Hills Development Agreement, there's a JHK traffic study reference, which maybe Mr. Worley might know something about. I've not been able to find that, but that is supposed to set the parameters for who's going to bear the relative expenses between the developer and the city. So money's kind of an important part of this, and it's unfair that SIMPO goes around and starts to pretend that the record is already fully developed on this and pretend that this is set in stone when it's not. They're doing the same thing with the business plan. The last business plan in 2015 had 2 sentences in it, which basically cross-reference back to SIMPO does a lot of planning. And it just mentions by name Sundog. So they're trying to create an impetus for this and suggest that there's 25 years of history, that this has already been decided, to put the people of Yavapai Hills on the defensive, that we're trying to come in and say no. We're trying to be part of the solution. We're not trying to be part of the problem. I'm not going to get into everything, but there's a fair amount of opposition. You saw that yesterday. I think SIMPO, what is relevant to the conversation today in light of what happened yesterday, is that SIMPO says they want to put up a bunch of plans so the city has the choice of cherry picking and we can pick and choose what we want. I think that is doing a disservice, and the time for that, the time to choose is kind of now upon us. Somebody yesterday said we have to stop kicking the can down the road. I've been reading all these materials going back 25 years, and there's a constant kicking the can down the road. The clear impetus from the discussion yesterday was that what the city people want is a regional park.
The Sundog
is antithetical to that. and they want the Highway 69 situation fixed, and those are where the priorities should be. Sundog is becoming a distraction. It's an aberration. It's not something that fits within the goals and values of Prescott, and it's time to end it. And I'll just close with this. SIMPO, in its own documents and its regional traffic plan, ranked priorities. The biggest priority was Highway 69. They gave that, I believe, a 26.7 score, which they calculated. Sundog, which has been put front and center by SIMPO, was ranked only at 5.8 from SIMPO's own studies. So there's a clear situation where we need to focus, and focus would help here instead of kicking things down the can, and it's time to kill Sundog from the general business plan. Thank you very much.
I think I wanted to make a comment. As I reviewed the 2015 plan and the people that are on it, we had some great people that were really intelligent, and I thought it was a really good plan. I hope with the product of this committee that as we develop the plan, we'll bring more specificity to recommendations, so it's easier for the city council when it comes time to evaluate something like this to understand that.
Right. If I could just add, in SIMPO's own documents that they had generated by ACOM, they go through a review of business plans. And the document said the draft 2014 city plan, but they're talking about the 2015 plan, does not provide a detailed list of future transportation projects. Instead, it refers back to the plan developed at SIMPO. So that reinforces what I'm saying. This is not in the plan. We've only pointed the finger back at SIMPO, and it's time for Prescott to step up and decide what Prescott wants, not what SIMPO wants.
Thank you. Okay, we can have two more speakers.
Hello, I'm Joanne Ohlers, Chair of Save the Dells, and I'm going to give my time to another member of the public to speak, but I'm going to ask Tammy to please distribute our position statement to the members today.
Thank you. And who was your, there's a term in Congress for this, I can't remember what it is right now, but. Proxy, yeah. So who's your proxy?
We don't have a proxy today,
Oh,
but
Who are you giving your time to?
oh, so Michael.
Not a proxy, he's
Speaking.
Hi, she's yielding her time. My name's Mike Parrish. I'm at 3180 Bar Circle A. That's in Prescott. We're right next to Yavapai Hills. We're facing that road on the state game lands and the trust lands. Anyway, two things. First of all, SIMPO had a open house in September. I don't know if you're aware about that at Aspire Sports, and they took surveys. It was a poster board, and they took written surveys, and they published it about 3 months later. Overwhelmingly negative, published by SIMPO. The positions were, I'm going to make an estimate, probably 95% against that road. So I just don't know if you're aware of that, but that's SIMPO's own gathering, fact-finding with the public, and it was overwhelmingly negative. So that's the first thing. The second thing is directed to Lindsay. We've been talking on the phone. Is that the final version that's going to be submitted to the stakeholders?
No, thank you for asking. This is just purely for planning and demonstration purposes so that we can overlay some maps and see what we're dealing with that preliminary plat unit 9. So this is just sort of the process of the engineering and planning process that we do. This is not anything
It's not final.
presented as an alternative.
Okay, so we've been speaking on the phone, but apparently, from what I understand, there's going to be a stakeholder meeting that involves groups like Yavapai Hills, Sundog Disconnect, and whatever, the first or second week of February?
That's what I'm hoping for. So that will be announced in newsletter form and widely via email. So the month of February is what we're shooting for.
So your engineers have been working on, I know there's 3 alternates. There's a 2 road build and a no build. They will be having a final form of that road before the stakeholder meeting, correct? The final form of what SIMPO wants. Not a final form, but what the engineers have drawn up as far as giving to the stakeholders. If I
Well,
can-
no. I mean, we'll see it as Simpo staff, their presentation materials,
But there's going to be a final presentation by Simpo as you proceed down the road. That's going to be your recommendation of where the route should be. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so that'll be done before the stakeholder meetings, correct? Meeting.
Not necessarily before this next one, but it will be done at some point before the end of the study.
The stakeholder meeting will help us
So
further gauge.
we need to get these on the microphone because.
Okay.
But if you can direct your comments to them right now.
So anyway, they have a timeline. You know, they're having open houses and they're having stakeholder meetings. They're producing a plan that's going to have a two-road build, and from what I understand, they're having difficulty with the grading issues. They have engineers that are working on that. So I just want to make that plain. That's not the final version that they're going to be recommending for their final report, which I believe is supposed to come out in September?
That's correct.
Okay. So that was the main question. But also, you know, everyone's saying overwhelmingly we're against it, but just be aware Simpo is actually producing those documents, and they have a timeline. And, you know, you keep hearing opposition to it, but once again, they produced that document that it was overwhelmingly against this road in their documents that they had and also in that open house. I'm glad they took input, but that's the fact. I haven't heard anybody standing up in these meetings going, we want this. So anyway, thank you for your time.
You betcha. Now we got space for one more speaker.
I thought she relinquished her time.
She yielded her time?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. If you look at the agenda, there wasn't customer comment, but we accommodated that since we know that Simpo is a high-profile issue, and we want to be able to solicit your comment. As a matter of fact, to my memory, I think members of this committee have been on the radio at least 4 times trying to solicit customer comments or input for everything related to the general plan. So that's part of our DNA, is to get customer comments. So now,
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I have one more comment. The last speaker mentioned that no one has spoken in favor of the Sundog connector. And I'm not speaking in favor of it because right now we are in the information gathering stage, so I'm keeping my mind open to both sides of the issue. However, my observations have been that there is quite a bit of traffic that comes up Prescott Lakes Parkway and then turns east onto Highway 69, especially during the afternoon rush hour. You have those 2 lanes of traffic at the intersection of 69 and Prescott Lakes Parkway that are left turn lanes, and those lanes get completely filled up with cars to where they reach the intersection where the stoplight is between Lamb Chevrolet and Walmart, and those cars that are trying to turn left either block the intersection or even with a green light, they fail to go through the intersection because they want to be in the left turn lanes, and they're unable to get into those left turn lanes without blocking the intersection. And what I've noticed is the traffic is starting to go straight. You have 4 lanes there. You have 2 left turn lanes, 1 straight lane, and then 1 right turn lane to go west on Highway 69. The straight lane takes you into Prescott Gateway Mall area. The Gateway Boulevard is the name of the street. And I've already noticed, and I've done this myself because I was unable to get into those 2 left turn lanes, where I will go follow the other cars that are also doing the same thing, go straight through that intersection of 69 and Prescott Lakes Parkway onto Gateway Boulevard, circle the mall on Gateway Boulevard all the way to Lee Boulevard, turn north on Lee Boulevard, back to 69, and then make a right turn on 69 off of Lee Boulevard to head east toward Prescott Valley on Highway 69. So I don't have numbers, I don't have an analysis, but it's my observations that the traffic is already so bad that people are circling the mall in order to go east on Highway 69. So I bet if you ask those people, do we need another way to go east toward Prescott Valley, I think their answer would be yes.
thank you, Terry.
Okay, so
Now we're
we
going
need move on.
to proceed. We got a staff update.
Okay. So now we'll move on to the general plan. So let's see. So over the last couple of months, I've been working with IT to come up to build a website for the general plan update. It's going to be separate from the City of Prescott website. The City of Prescott is right now revamping their
I'm going to
whole.
ask you to pause for a second. I see a lot of people packing up because, Sundog's done, but you might want to pay attention to this because this is a way you can get input into the city. Okay, back.
So I've been working with them. I've been creating it. We want to create a really simple website to start off with to make sure we're just getting the information out. So this is what we've come up with. Basically, it's we have our new logo up here. It's Plan Prescott is our logo, our catchphrase. Planning the future, preserving the past. So the website will be planprescott.com. It's not active yet. We're still in the staging phase, so no one can access this yet. So this website is a one-stop shop for information, data, and opportunities to get involved in the 2025 general plan update process. Check back frequently for updates and new information. So what we'll have here is we will have the 2015 general plan here. The survey, which I sent you the survey questions, and I'll show you what the survey is going to look like virtually. The link will be here and other ways for them to participate. We also have a where are we in the process, and if it's, there it goes, okay. So basically, as we're moving forward, there are 4 stages, basically, of this process. We have 4 years. So we had fiscal year 22, where we got organized, we got the community created, we started creating a website and creating handouts. And so everything as we go through, we'll be updating these and where we are in that phase. So as we move forward through phase 2, which is 2023, we'll be updating this as we move along. Staffs, after we get it launched, we will be able ourselves to update it. So where we are in the process, just some general plan basic. What is a general plan and why is it being updated? Other general plan facts. Who creates the plan? Why do we create the plan? We came up with some questions we thought that would come up. How long will the process take? How can I share ideas and participate? And when will the citizens vote on the plan? So that's all here. And we can add to it and we can change it as we start getting more information.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes?
Well, one of the parts of the general plan that's been emphasized over and over is public input.
We're getting there.
Well, my question is related to the mayor and members of council. How can we have public input when they can't see what we're doing here? You eliminated Zoom.
No, it's being broadcasted live.
It is.
Yes, it's being recorded and rebroadcasted. All these meetings all of them have been recorded and rebroadcasted.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And we will be getting press releases out, other information out around the community, and we have other ways that we're going to be getting information out. We're getting to that.
Tammy, could I just ask you to clarify that? Did you say they're being broadcasted or rebroadcast?
Both.
Okay, thanks.
So right now, they can watch it live. We have it right there in that TV. The same as the council and the P&Z and all our committees. They're all recorded. That's why we're in this room. So they're all our cameras are in here. They're all video recorded and broadcasted and rebroadcasted. And available on YouTube. So anybody can watch these meetings. And this is where we'll put other data, other studies, other links to like the SIMPO website, the climate study that you guys will be hearing about next month. That's just getting completed. And any other resources, the open space study, any other plans the city has, we will be putting all that and dumping it on this site. And then our contact page where people can just send us a message. It'll go to our new email, which is hello@planprescott.com. We'll have to figure out a phone number or who's going to go on there. And then the address we will be changing as whenever we move out of this building. But right now we're still at 201 South Cortez. But this is a way where people can just send us general messages or comments, which we are already getting from you guys going out on the radio. We have received a couple of comments, already emails from the general public, with just general comments. So I think as they're looking for a doctor and can't, that's been a common question. More doctors are needed. Another one was that more Teachers are needed, which we know it kind of deals with the housing situation, which is another thing we'll be looking at. And there was another one with some other general comments too. So we've received about 3 right now so far with you guys going on the radio. But we're hoping once we get this launched, we're going to have flyers that we're handing out. We have the Yavapai County Contractors Association does the home show every, I think it's March, May. We'll be attending there because the city of Prescott has a table. We'll have information to hand out for them at that point, and then any other events. And then we'll be discussing open houses later. So that's kind of our website of how it looks right now. It's still in the works. So over the next couple of weeks, I'll be working with IT to finish this up and to get it launched. So that's that portion of it. Then we have the survey.
Tammy?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
Mary Frederickson. Do you have a timeline as to when you might be able to get this website up and going?
I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks. My schedule's opening up a little bit too. I have to just put this together and send it to IT, and they've been really good about getting it up really fast. We're just finishing up the survey. So this is the survey. This is the same program that the county and also Chino Valley have used. It's a Survey 123 using our ArcGIS program. And so basically, the only required question we're asking for is people's address. That way we can map it, and then we can see where we're getting all the answers from and if we're missing areas. That way we can reach out, send flyers out, or send postcards out. Hey, we want your input. We noticed somebody in this area has responded, or do a community meeting or something like that. But that way, as we're going through and we're getting all these surveys in, we can kind of see where they're coming from. Sure.
Go ahead.
Councilman Moore?
Thank you. Tammy, I would just suggest that in the age category, I think you should go 61 to 70, 70 to 80 and older. I think you shouldn't just 61 and older is a 30-year gap potentially, and you're doing 10-year gaps. I would continue that 10-year gap.
Okay.
Because I think it's important who are you hearing from?
Well, that's why we're
that's potentially 40%, more than 50% of Prescott's population is in that age group.
Yeah.
So break it down even further.
Okay, I can do that easily. Thanks.
Tammy, my suggestion was on the address, and if you can kind of boil down the reason why you're collecting the address information, not to specifically identify people, but to identify the area of the community that the response is from, so you can map it. I think that might help some people feel more comfortable about giving their address out.
And we could add little notes here
Yeah.
of why we're asking for people's address.
Yeah.
Would a zip code do the same?
No. No.
Okay.
Because it can't map out exactly where the area they're coming from. So.
And I think 03 is in the county, a good part of it.
Yeah. So it kind of goes through the general information, and then it goes through all the questions. But this kind of shows you what it looks like. So this is what it would look like on a computer, or if they bring it up on their phone, this is what it'll look like on their phone. And then also, once you've gone through a category, you can close it and then go on to the next category. So, and then on a tablet, this is what it look like on a tablet. You can also change the languages. So if we realize that maybe there's a certain group of people in Prescott we aren't reaching to, maybe there's the Spanish community or something, we can change it to different languages to try to get their input to, if we want, if we feel the need to later. So.
Thank you for this, Tammy. I wish we would have had it in the last general plan.
Yeah, we've been we're big about using technology with with all the plans that SIMPO is doing. Even through COVID and stuff, we did realize that with the online surveys, it was a way higher percentage of people responding to surveys than we ever got before. But we will also have paper stuff, and at the open houses have ways of people to comment on and provide more input. So I just wanted to show you that I have been working on this. I have great staff backing me up to help me with this too. So once we get this all finalized and ready to go, it's easy to edit. This is just our first, remember, we're looking at the 30,000-foot view of Prescott. These are general questions, and I know some of you did submit questions, and they're very specific. So we'll get down to that in a second, beyond the general plan, but we can always change the survey questions. We could do a different survey, if we see something or a pattern that we want to get more information for a certain element, we can launch different survey. These are really easy to put together. This is a super easy program to use. And so we have lots of technology and available to us. And with our website, we can just throw it on there and then send blast messages out to people. So I really just wanted to show you what this is really going to look like. It's pretty cool. The website, like I said, we're going to keep it basic and simple, right now. And then this is a website we can use later because it's just Plan Prescott. There's no years or anything. And then we can, after we adopt the general plan, then one of these will be changing to implementation. So then we can give the public ways of this is how we're implementing the plan. We could keep it up to date, like you saw on that North Carolina website that I showed you last time. That it was a whole page just on implementation, doing newsletters, stories about what we're doing. So it keeps us to make sure that we keep looking at the general plan. What are the low-hanging fruit that we can implement, and then what else can we do, and make sure that we show the public that we are actually doing what we said we were going to do. So that's kind of the idea behind all this, and we're super excited about it, and it gives us another way to use it for planning projects too, and other things. So I just wanted to show you all that information. Is there any questions right now?
I think Councilman Moore has a comment.
Thank you, Chairman. One other thought is maybe at the end of the survey is you could give people an option to opt in for email updates. So that, if you release a new version of the survey, you have everybody's email, and you can just do an email blast and say, hey, we've updated survey questions. Go back and revisit the survey. So I think instead of just the address, let's get an email for everybody too, so we can continue to communicate through the whole process.
I'm not sure once we publish it what we have to ask for. I haven't got that far yet, but I'm working with Kat Moody with our GIS. So once we have this where it's ready to launch, then we'll get more into that. But that was an idea to have, and I don't know how that's going to be filtered down. So that's something I'll work with IT.
It's optional. They don't have to do it.
Yeah. And we have a different separate email list. I have 3 email lists going. I have one for you guys. I have one for other. So anybody that's interested in just getting the agendas and the packets that go out to you, I have a separate email address, so we can always add people on too. So let's see.
Any comments from the committee? Questions? I had one comment. I mentioned this on KQ&A last Thursday. When it comes time for ideas, I think it's important to see a way to tie them together so we have some sense of a cost-benefit analysis. And let me give you a couple examples. In every radio event I was on and Terry was on, I think the topic of we need public transportation. But how does that work? When I gave a presentation to the Rotary, Ken Lane came up to me and said, we have a shortage of doctors. I can relate to that. And he said, and you know the reason why they won't come to Prescott or they leave Prescott? No. He says, because they don't feel the education is sufficient. He said, do you know the reason why the education system's not sufficient? No. Because we can't hire and retain good teachers. Now there was a nugget of connectivity. Mm-hmm. Doctors, teachers, affordable housing. So since this is going public and hopefully people are listening or will watch it later, when you work on that survey or you want a message, because you have the message capability, I really encourage everyone to try to draw a cost-benefit analysis of how you connect these things so it's not 3 things. We need more doctors, we need more teachers, we need affordable housing, but you can connect the 3, how they come together, and you've got synergies.
We're already seeing that with the comments that we're doing, the projects we're coming forward, and questions that are being asked. And we also have a housing committee, that affordable workforce housing committee that's been formed, which we can look at this stuff because they're going to be helping us with the housing element. So they don't know that yet, but they are going to be helping me with the housing element. So,
so we had public comment before on SIMPO. and the agenda now calls for any public comment. So, does anybody have any?
I'm not done yet.
Oh, I thought you said you had any questions. We're done. I'm sorry.
No. So, this. Wait. Okay, this is a flyer that we put together. It basically explains what the general plan. This is what we'll be handing out at community events and stuff, or we'll be posting around town, at grocery stores, any place that has a bulletin board. We could place something. We want to put these up. So, when we get copies, after I figure out our budget, then we'll be having you guys ask you if you can go around in places that you may know, or HOAs, or bulletin boards at your community groups or whatever. We don't want these put around. What we'll do is probably instead of having this here on this corner, we'll have the SKU to the survey. A lot of people like taking pictures of the SKUs, so they can go right straight to it. So we'll have that there, so it'll be very clear that that's to the survey. But this is something else we put together. And then that was just that update process. So the next thing we kind of wanted to go over is the reminder that this is the 30,000-foot view, the general plan. That's what the general plan is. It's your overarching general ideas and thoughts. The goal is, after this, is that as we have we'll do our yearly implementation, look at the general plan every year, what's been done, what hasn't been done, what are some other low-hanging fruit, or something else that we can work on. And that can also possibly, with the council's strategic plan, if there's something that the council can help with or something, maybe that's something we can be added on. That's our thoughts as we move forward and implement the general plan. Then we also have a commercial corridor study that we have areas, Willow Creek Road, 69, Miller Valley, I think, and I think parts of Iron Springs are all designated as commercial corridors within the city of Prescott. So we want to relook at that corridor study, see, do we have to expand the corridors as we're growing? Do we have to update it? And that's one of our many projects to update studies. And then also we have existing neighborhood plans. I have a whole bookcase, and I'm trying to figure out which ones are valid or not. So as we figure those out, mostly as we start packing and going through stuff, we'll be scanning those and putting them on the website as background information. But none of those neighborhood plans have been updated in 15 years. So we're going to look at updating them, or if there's areas that we can create new community neighborhood plans. That's something that's on our radar to do after the general plan. And then anything else that comes out of the general plan that beyond what other groups like SIMPO or other groups are working on that we may be able to tackle from a planning perspective. So we just wanted to show you that there is different phases. We're at phase 1 now with the general plan, the general overview of the city. And so as you guys are sending me questions, I'm like, wow, this would be really great for a commercial study, or this is going to be really good for a neighborhood study because it was more specific. So like I said, I've archived all your guys', everything you guys send me. I have a folder. It's all going into. I'm keeping it all. So as we move forward, that we can be using all that information. Yes.
One thing I think we've talked a lot about implementation and what's the relationship between what the city actually does and the general plan, which is a guiding policy document. There's a lot of people that believe that the capital improvement plan is part of planning. And I would urge you to add that up there. Certainly the first year is a budget document, but those subsequent years it's a planning document.
That's something we'll put on it because so we have another group, the general plan work group, which I have representation from all the different departments within the city of Prescott. So we hopefully keep that going because we want to make sure that this is a city plan. It's not just for planning and zoning. It's for all our departments. We have questions from the fire, we have questions from the library, questions from the police that were all incorporated into those questions. And so any other plans like that one, that if it comes out that we need to look at it, that's something that could come up as one of these phases or as the other plans. It doesn't have to be phase 5. We're just saying that's at the bottom, but this was just to kind of show you that there's more in our horizon rather than just the general plan. So after this, we want to get more specific in certain areas of the community And that's where we'll address more specific and more get more in the weeds. Right now, we're going to keep kind of at the 30,000-foot view for this. I hope that made sense. And I'm done now.
You've done a great job. Thank you.
Just have one question, if I could, Ted.
Yes.
When do you expect to have the first iteration of questions finalized?
In the next couple of weeks, so we can get it on the website and then get everything ready to be launched.
So we won't see them before they go on the website?
Well, you had them. They're in the packet.
Okay, and the reason I bring it up is the city's email's been kicking me out, and I had probably 40 questions that Tammy and George never got. So I didn't know if this was final, and I sent them the 40 questions. So is there?
And it's
any-
not final yet. We'll go through your questions to see if there's something that hasn't been addressed yet in our questions, and to add, or if they're very more specific to like what would be in a neighborhood plan, then we'll save those for those.
Mr. Chairman, if I promised Tammy I wouldn't talk, and here I've been up here a lot.
But you need to speak up, George.
Speak up,
Here.
sorry. One of the things that Deborah sent us with the list of potential questions for this survey is something that you can continue to do to us. As Tammy pointed out, the initial survey we put up, maybe for a large area, we're looking at it from 30,000 feet, but as you get more and more into the process, you may want to get more specific in questions like questions that are just related to transportation when you're working on the transportation element. So that's something that this process lets us do that we couldn't do easily in the past. On the fly, change up the questionnaire and get different information in for you to use when you're working on individual elements.
Thank you, George. Any public comment? Remember to state your name and your address, please.
My name is Sandy Studi. I live at 4976 Cactus Place in Yavapai Hills, and I'm not here to talk about Sundog. I retired from being general manager at Yavapai Regional Transit located in Chino Valley, and I consider myself a transit advocate. I would encourage, if it's possible in the process, to have a subcommittee to deal directly with the public transit issue. SIMPO has had multiple studies done through the years. Prescott Valley now has a viable public transit system, a new mode that's working very effectively. Yavapai Regional Transit enters Prescott and serves 5 bus stops here, and is very interested in partnering as regional growth continues. I work with them as a volunteer. So if there's some way to focus on public transit, it's another kick the can down the road topic in this community, and I would urge that. The other thing is my experience is working with people with disabilities and seniors. I was at People Who Care for a while, and they initiated a program to teach seniors how to use technology. So the notion of how to get information out to people who may live in an isolated environment or who may be terrified of speaking up or in a more public forum or have no ability to use technology, I think has the potential to leave one very important segment of people to get their feedback. Also, people with disabilities are in our community in a variety of sizes, shapes, and disabilities. And so if there is some method working through the coordination committee that works with human services agencies, there's also an organization of the executive directors of nonprofits here in the community that might be a way to reach out and touch organizations that deal more specifically with people with limited ability to communicate. I would urge you to continue to look for ways to do that.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, a comment?
Yes.
I also would like to caution us not to make this too cumbersome by being virtue of too long. And So we need to be kind of selective, in my opinion. The longer you make a general plan, the likelihood that people are going to read it all the way through decreases, okay? Also, in addition to the multiple guest questions, I'll put it that way, and the prompted questions where you get answers, I really want people to think on their own about what they think is important. And I think you've got that opportunity in that email, but I'd like to stress it too. Don't just look at these questions. What do you want? You know, what's important to you?
And we do have another list of questions that were at the back. We're like more fill-in. So we hope to have another somehow where they can fill in on those questions. But these are also questions we hope to have at the open houses where people are sitting there and they can put a sticky note or something with their thoughts on it or however we want to do it. So that leads us into the next planning open. So at the next meeting, which is February 22nd at 2 p.m., so we're going to start working on planning the open houses because we've had some ideas. Open houses are a little bit more fluid, so there's no presentation that people have to be there at a certain time. They have a time frame where they could come and circulate around and get questions. And so we'll have more specifics about that. We also have the climate study presentation. They'll be doing they're finishing up the study right now. We're hoping to have it by the 1st of February, the final version. And then they're also doing a presentation to City Council, but I've also asked them to come do the presentation to this group for their climate studies to be able to use that information in moving forward for a possible new element. And then another item that was asked to be put on the next agenda was to discuss recommending to council to hire a facilitator to assist with outreach gatherings. So we're bringing this forward to you. Is this something that you want to discuss at the next meeting? And our chair left.
Do you need a
Okay.
motion?
Do we have any comments from the committee as to whether or not we want to? We're talking about item C.
Yes.
Okay.
Whether you want to have that on the next agenda to discuss.
I'd like to comment on that.
Okay.
I think it's important to prioritize what we're going to talk about first before we talk about hiring somebody to talk about that.
Okay. And I have a comment on that as well. As far as a facilitator is concerned, this is my opinion. I think we have a great city staff. I think they do an excellent job. And I think we need, as a committee, to let the city staff do their job. And we are here to help them, not to be working against them, but working with them. And I think the idea of a facilitator is not conducive to working with the city staff. I think the city staff is very competent and should be allowed to do their job.
I thought we were just talking about whether we were going to talk about it next time. So
Okay.
are we
Well,
talking about it
so
this
what I'm
time or next
So
time?
what I'm suggesting is that this is an item that is not necessary for the agenda. I mean, I think it's just spinning our wheels and working against the city staff to even consider a facilitator. I think the city staff is fully capable of taking care of any questions that we might have and anything that the citizens of Prescott's input. The website, I think, is a great idea, and I like the website. I like the questionnaires, and I like that the questionnaires are evolving all the time. So I really don't see the need for either a facilitator or the discussion for the facilitator.
Just a point of clarification. Did we skip E, A, and B?
No, it's already covered.
But you covered it?
Yes.
Okay. Don?
I would like to bring up that I think that particular item about a facilitator was brought up by a member of the committee who was not here to present their thoughts. So I would suggest we need to have it at that time so they can present their thoughts too.
Okay, Deborah, do you have a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to move that we do postpone this until the next meeting since Mr. Hess is not here. And as Mr. Mickelman has said, let's let Mr. Hess present this item and we discuss it at the next meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I think it's really imperative for education and information, both for the committee and for the public, that a representative from the necessary departments to the general plan come and do presentations to us. So
I'm working on that. So each month you will have someone. I have a work group with representation from all the city departments, and they know that they're going to be called.
Thank
so I've already been working on that.
Thanks, Tammy.
Any further comments? Well, we're a little out of order, but we'll accommodate. Come on up.
Apologies for being out of order. My name is Dan Pridgick. I live at 1194 Sunrise Boulevard, Yavapai Hills. I've been attending various SIMPO meetings for the last year, largely in response and out of concern of the Sundog Connector. However, SIMPO has also invited me last June to one of their planning sessions, and they had a great set of briefs by Yavapai Regional Transit as well as Yavaline in Prescott Valley that had a very interesting set of achievements as well as challenges. And I think it would be very good information for the Planning Commission members to get a copy of that briefs or receive briefs from representatives of those two organizations to understand some of their achievements that they've been able to accomplish in the last several years, as well as some of their challenges going forward, because it'll help incorporate some of the multimodal transit capabilities within the Prescott area also. And
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm about to close the meeting, but before I do, I wanted to make a comment.
He's already been up.
You've already been up.
I know, and if that's the rule, I'll live with it. I have one point I wanted to make that isn't here because of SIMPO specifically, although it does involve that, and it hasn't been talked about yet.
30 seconds.
I think this committee is at a cross, Richard Kaplan, 840 Flying U Court, Prescott, and Yavapai Hills. I think this committee is at an important crossroads, and this plan going forward is extremely important. And we have to decide, does Prescott want to continue to stay true to the roots of Prescott, or does Prescott want to start to become like Prescott Valley? And one thing that hasn't been talked about today, when SIMPO has been making presentations to other governmental entities, I've been watching them. I watched the presentation that was done to the Prescott Valley Town Hall. One of the important points they made to Sundog was that Sundog would empty out directly into the Prescott Valley Business District. And this, in order to connect the dots, brings in Kathy Rusing's comments from yesterday's City Council meeting, where she pointed out that the largest block of sales tax dollars, 30%, comes from the 69 corridor, and only 10% comes from downtown. So this is, regional cooperation is good, but Prescott has some decisions to make that may be in the best interest of Prescott, and we should be looking out for Prescott and not Prescott Valley. Prescott Valley has been irresponsible with unchecked growth and unfettered development, and we have to decide, do we want to have Granville on the Hill at Glassford Hill, or do we want to keep it open space? I thank you very much for indulging me.
Can I
All right,
give
now closing comments.
Yeah, can I give a simple response to that? The greatest reason programs get funded is they have collaboration. Prescott Valley is not that place over there. It's part of this region. For years, we had a former mayor said, I don't care about Prescott Valley. That's over with. We need to work together.
Let me try this one last time.
Yogi Berra.
I encourage debate. And in my modus operandi, you debate the topic, you don't attack the person, so there's no ad hominem attacks. And today, I think we did a good job. We got a lot of issues up on the table. We may or may not necessarily agree, but nobody got attacked, so I could therefore say we had a good meeting, and the meeting is closed.